Hey, super excited to have you join me today. We are talking with Cari Skrdla. Now, she is a PhD, she knows her stuff, and she's going to talk to us about how the heart has neurons. So if you've ever thought, oh, should I follow my head or follow my heart? Understand that your heart thinks. And there's some other really interesting information that she's going to share with us. One more thing, make sure that you pay attention, that you stay for the whole show. At the very end, she shares this story of faith, this story of stepping out into the darkness and doing something totally crazy, and why she did it and how it was following her heart. So if you are somebody who wants your life to mean something, who feels like maybe that you have a purpose, a mission to fulfill, make sure you listen to Cari's interview today. How is it we can do some amazing and sometimes unexplainable things, like heal our own bodies by the power of our thought? Mother's intuition, the law of attraction. Can we really tap into our subconscious mind? Can we really create our own realities? It begs the question, are we novice gods? All right, I have Cari Skrdla here. We're going to talk about a lot of really cool stuff, but one of the things that she is sharing with me is that our heart actually thinks. Isn't that amazing? And it kind of opens up your mind to possibilities about how our whole bodies are connected and how we really have more creative possibility and potential within us. So can you explain a little bit more about what it means that your heart thinks?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it's only been recently that individuals in my field, psychology, started to look and do a lot of study on patients who had dementia or Alzheimer's because they retain certain skills and ability. And so what we're calling today the third mind or the superconscious is actually the heart. And so you've heard people say things like, well, the heart has a mind of its own, right?
Okay.
Or I had a feeling or something told me. This is the space of the superconscious. And, you know, in order for an organ to have the ability to think, it has to have neurons like the brain. And so researchers, including myself, have...
And I do have to say, she's a PhD, so she's not making this stuff up.
Yeah, hi Mom, she'd be proud of that.
There we go.
And so we started researching the heart. And, you know, the heart is associated with, you know, it's a love, romance, but in reality, we know it to be the organ that pumps blood and moves it around our bodies, right? It keeps us alive. And what's been discovered recently is that there are neurons in the heart. It literally has a mind of its own, and it does think. And it holds on to images and words, skills, passions, ability. You know, we hear people say things like, you know, I just followed my heart. I just went with my heart. But deeper studies show us that the heart is thinking and in communication with the mind. And it actually speaks to the mind more than the mind speaks to the heart.
Wait, the heart speaks to the mind more than the mind speaks to the heart?
It does.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
It's in constant communication because the mind is needed in order to move the body, right? So the heart is communicating with the mind. It's making suggestions, recommendations, and the mind will either comply with it or shut it down. And it's an interesting thing that happens. The subconscious is always navigating things. It's driving your car, it's brushing your teeth. My father used to say that the mind makes a great servant and a horrible master. Yeah. And a lot of times what people would dare to do in their lives, endeavors that they want to pursue, they don't go after because the mind is saying, no, you can't quit your job and start a business. Because what about your income? So there's this conversation, grappling that's going on all the time between individuals' heart and their mind.
Oh, yeah, man, that is really fascinating.
Yeah.
And this makes so much sense. So I'm a filmmaker by trade, and I make my living by trusting my instincts, by trusting my heart when it feels right. You know, like I'll know the take is right. I was just recording this morning, and that's what I was listening to as she would talk and do the narration. And when it felt right in my heart, I knew it was right.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense that all of that connects. And then the other thing is kind of thinking about how we can visualize and create things into our lives.
Yeah.
We can work all we want on trying to get it through our brain, but it isn't until we really feel it that we feel that shift happens.
Right.
So that's what's doing it.
Well, and shift is the perfect word, because I think it's emerging more than ever where people are starting to pay attention to it. You know, intuition, gut feeling, all of these things that we call it. But I think what's most important is that we retrain our ears to listen to the heart. And that's something that, you know, we've been talked out of a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I won't go into all of the reasons why, but we can see it in children that are, you know, between the ages of 2 or 5 years old. They're just going with their hearts. Now, you know, there's some development that has to happen there, and we certainly want to have wisdom, but our hearts are shut down over time. And what's interesting, really caught my attention, was my research with heart transplant patients. Oh. So there was a 52-year-old man. Okay. He was an engineer. My husband is an engineer. So they have a particular way about them of just always analyzing and processing. And this gentleman received the heart of a 15-year-old male who had died in a car accident. And his wife, in the interview, was stating how annoying he was since he came home. And he was sitting there and he was just bouncing and smiling because he had received not only a love for rock and roll music, but the ability to play the guitar, and had never had a lesson before in his life. Later, they discovered that the heart he received belonged to a musician. And there's like case after case that I looked at where individuals were able to hear their heart, their new heart. And that's what prompted this thought with me. Why can't we hear our own hearts as clearly as someone receiving someone else's heart can? And it's just simple. After a while, we start to listen to it like Charlie Brown's teacher. You know, it's like overriding it somehow with our brains, like, yeah, well, I can't do that right now, or someday I'll take that trip, or someday I'll learn that language or play that instrument. And our desires are buried in our heart. Here's something I have to tell you. The heart in a human being starts to form day one of conception. It is the first organ in a human being. Okay. So I believe, and this is just my personal belief, that we've come here to this place with what our mission is, our purpose, and our deepest desires already in our hearts.
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's so what drives me. Mm-hmm. And I've wondered why it's so important. But if that is implanted very first, that's amazing.
Yeah. And then over time, here we are trying from the place of the conscious or the subconscious. You hear people say it all the time. I just want to know what my purpose is. Mm-hmm. I just want to fulfill my purpose. And it's because they can't hear it anymore. So
how do we got to know? Yeah. How do we hear our heart? What do we do?
Well, you know, it's a fast-paced society that we live in, very fast. But it really does come down to the exercises that stimulate the heart and allow it to speak. And that is quieting the mind. Some people find that in meditation. Me, I find it when I'm journaling, when I'm walking. Some people find it in prayer. My husband, for example, he finds his in the shower. It's interesting because his mind is quiet there when he's shampooing his hair. And I don't think that there's one way, but whatever you discover as a method for quieting your mind, and if you just stop and listen, you'll hear your heart.
Oh, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's so brilliant. Okay, so how do if people want to pursue this, if they want to start listening to their heart more, how can you help them? How can they
Sure.
how can they get help from you or whatever you're involved with?
Well, I have a program, and I love this program. It's called Knowing What You Want and Getting It. I also have an audio on my website called The Heart of the Matter, which really goes into detail and also gives more explanation as to why journaling or doodling or these things work so that you can hear your heart better. And my website is www.lifeback.life.
.life. Yes, I love .life. Like domains. That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Okay. And now I want you to tell one last story because you were telling this off camera.
Sure.
But it was about how you were winning accolades and getting complimented at work and you were doing fantastic. But there's something in your heart that was prompting you to quit your job and do something different, do something completely scary. Will you tell us that story?
Yeah, I'd love to. Listening to my heart has just been a personal practice for the last 5 years. It's even how I met the man of my dreams. But on this particular day, I have a good friend, I think she's been here on your show, Leslie Householder, and we met and we started walking together. And it's interesting, I was walking with Leslie and I had no idea about the contribution that she had made to us all with her books, her teachings. And after I had walked with her for a year, I found out from someone else and I began to read her books. Jackrabbit Factor was the first.
So you walked, but you didn't talk, is what you're saying.
I was doing all the talking. She had no opportunity to tell me anything. And it was really funny. I was talking about all of my friends with red hair and how I had an unusual amount of friends with red hair. And my friend who I was speaking to at the time said, like, how many? And I started to name them. And when I said Leslie Householder, she said the author. And I go, no, I don't think so. No, she's like a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And so I go to Google to put Leslie Householder on and prove it's not my friend.
Yeah.
And she populated just her profile picture. And oh my gosh, my friend thought that was hilarious. She said, only you could be walking with a 3-time best-selling author and not know it, right? But fast forward, I did her program. It's called Mindset Mastery. And with the work that I've done in the heart, it was like the piece that was missing for the whole puzzle. Because I understood the heart, I understood the brain from my academic studies, but how do you bring it all together? And her Mindset Mastery program, one of the reasons why I love it so much, I've even recommended it to students, was because it is tactical. You know, how do you get out in your life on the court and actually do this work? And so one of the, in the phase 2, one of the things that you do is you create a long-term goal. And at that time I was teaching, I was faculty at the university. I was also working in articulation with community colleges all across the country. And it was great. I loved it. My mom was proud. And my long-term goal was to resign my position and go to work for Leslie Householder, my friend. And I had no idea what that would look like, and I wasn't attached. I knew that was key to not be attached. And I shared it with my husband. And sometime after that, I would say several months after that, Leslie and I, we had not been walking together. She moved, I moved. And my husband had a dream, and he came to me one day and he said, I think there's something you're supposed to be doing. And I looked at him and I said, like what? And he said, well, you're supposed to be working with Leslie. And I said, yeah, I know. I'm going to do that. And it's funny, Scott, like I knew that in my heart, but I wasn't listening to it because my mind was saying, doesn't make sense right now to resign this great position.
Yeah.
This is far out. And my father taught me that slow obedience is still disobedience. So I was definitely being disobedient.
I'm there all the time. So that
just thinking about it, right? And so finally my husband comes to me one morning and he said, I want you to resign your position. You're supposed to be with Leslie. And he kissed me goodbye, and I said, yeah, okay. And I still didn't get that that was something that was supposed to happen right now. And I reported directly to our campus president, and great guy, and I'm on the Zoom with him because I worked out of my home. Mm-hmm. And he started to tell me what a great job I was doing, and I was loving it. And I get a text from my husband, and the text message said, if you don't quit your job and go where you're supposed to be, I am going to come home and quit that job for you. And so my husband, he's a tall guy, but a very gentle guy from Iowa. And when he is straight with you like that, you listen. So while I was still on the call, I heard it. And I'm like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I looked into the camera and I told my boss I have to resign. And he said, what are you talking about, man? He said it just like that. I have no idea why he was calling me man. And so I said, I'm supposed to be somewhere else. I said, you know my beliefs. You know I'm a person of faith. And I said, I just have somewhere else I have to be, and I have to resign today. And shortly after that, I was on the phone with Human Resources, and everyone was sad to see me go, and I said goodbye. And I couldn't believe it, the moment that I was obedient to what was in my heart and what I desired. Mm-hmm. I get a text from Leslie, and it said, hey, I miss you. And I text back, that's great, because I just quit my job to come and work for you. And she responded, I have no idea what that looks like. And the next day we had lunch together, and the timing was so perfect because she was just coming back into being out with her work, traveling, presenting, doing speaking engagements. And she had done all of that by herself before. And I'm still amazed that she was even able to do that when I look at the amount of work that the two of us put in to what it is that she's contributing out here. And so, I listened to my heart and created the goal. And then I listened to my husband and I listened to my heart, and my dream manifested.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Thank you so much for letting us record that and share that with others. I believe in the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
I believe that when you hear a story from somebody else who has been there before, who has done there, who has, has gone there and done that, that it gives you the courage to then listen to your heart. And thank you for sharing the science behind it. Wow, this is awesome. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully what Cari has shared with you helps you with what you're doing. Hopefully it helps you to learn to really trust your heart. There are neurons in there, and there's greater power in really trusting and listening to your heart. What do you think? You've heard our thoughts? Now let's hear yours. In the comment section below, share what impressions came to your mind. What did you get out of this? If you have had thoughts to take action, please do so. Always listen to your inner voice. It's your ultimate guidance system. Of course, the best place to take action is at scottwilhite.com, because if you join me for a free web class, I will reward you by sending you my purpose planner so you can have a physical guide to help you get in touch with your inner guide. What if you are a God in the making? That would mean there's purpose to your life, meaning to your challenges. You have a great work to do. May you have the courage, faith, and power to become who you were truly meant to be. See you next time.